You have $1 a month, $12 a year. I know that you're tired of having to dial to 85 yards to hit something at 83 yards. I know you're tired of dialing to 54 to hit 53. All you got to do is spend $12 a year for Archer's Advantage and you have the perfect sight tape. No more guesswork. You're probably spending $12 a month on Netflix and another $12 a month on Hulu. And I bet they'll send you an email notice saying that they're going to raise their price. Archer's Advantage is a great tool for us and it's super, super cheap. So let's take a journey to get the perfect sight tape. Let's go. Do not skip or say, hey, any of these steps are good enough. You want to do everything to your best ability. Step one is going to be to go to Archer's Advantage online. This website is going to give you what you put into it. It's just a tool. So if you don't use it properly, you're not going to get an accurate sight tape. It's extremely cheap and it has a bunch of functionality. I'm not sponsored by Archer's Advantage in any way, shape, or form. It's $12 a year. Say you want to go with a high front and center setup. You can input your bow specifications and then that new arrow setup, and it's going to let you know if your arrow spline is going to be too weak, too stiff, if it's going to be perfect. Is it marginally weak? Is it marginally stiff? All that information is going to be there, along with just a bunch of other information that you as an archer can use, that you as an archer can benefit from, and that's overall just going to make you more accurate, more deadly. Step two is going to be to add a setup. Now, if this is new to you, then obviously you're not going to have a setup in there, so you click add setup and you can name it whatever you want. I have a bunch of different setups in my list. I have VXR lightweight, which is a lighter weight arrow for me, which is 555 grains. I got a heavier one that's set up based off of 588 grains, and I'm gonna even set up maybe a lighter one for the Oahu goats. If you go from shots at 30 yards all the way out to the more extreme distances for you Western hunters, this is gonna be the perfect system. All right, so the first thing you're gonna add is your arrow setup. So go into setup, obviously, go to arrow, and it's gonna ask you what the brand is. So for me, I'm shooting a Easton Axis 260 spine, so I need to input that there. You wanna make sure you do it from the raw end with no components, no broadhead, no impact collar, none of that on here. From this raw end to this raw end. So do not measure, do not factor in your knock when you're doing the arrow length. That's gonna give you bad results. Remember, this is only as good as the information that you put in. So raw end to raw end, input that in for your arrow length. So it's gonna ask for your point weight. So point weight being the field point or broadhead that you're using, paired with whatever your insert is. So for my point weight, it's gonna be 175 grains because I have a 75 grain insert and a 100 grain field point. So field point or broadhead, whichever one you're using, add that to your insert, that's gonna be your point weight. Now in addition, on that same screen, you're gonna be adding your adapter weight. For me, my adapter weight is 10 grains. I'm using an iron wheel titanium impact collar. It's really good for these Easton Axis arrows with the hidden insert. It strengthens the end. It's gonna ask you what type of knock you're using. If you're using Easton Axis, it's pretty simple. Go to the X knock, put that in, and it'll already know how many grains it is, so you don't have to worry about measuring your knock and adding that weight. Then you're gonna add what type of fletchings you're using. I'm using the Boning Blazers. I input that, I input the length, it knows how much it weighs. Next, I go to the arrow wrap and I input the arrow wrap, the type. If your arrow wrap type isn't in their database, there's a section for you to write generic, and then you can just go ahead and actually weigh out your wrap and just put that information in there. It'll be perfectly fine. Remember, don't get lazy with any of these steps. Everything needs to be perfect. The beautiful thing about this is, right now I'm just using stock X knocks. If I want to go to lighted knocks, because it'll be better for footage, I don't have to recreate this whole system. Once I hit add system or add setup, what it's going to do is clone everything from my previous setup. And then all I have to do is change the type of knock. So if I'm going Luminoc or whatever other lighted knock you may want to use, all you have to do is input that in and the rest of your settings will be perfectly fine. You can trust that, but make sure you verify always. All right, so what we need next is going to be your sight setup. It's gonna ask for your sight type, and for us, 9 times out of 10, your sight type is gonna be inch. So I have the Philippians 4:13 sight. The I can do all things through Christ sight. Y'all may call it a Montana Black Gold Pro sight, but I have written on there Philippians 4:13. It just reminds me, it helps me stay in my closed loop when I'm at full draw on an animal. It lets me know that I can do all things through Christ, and that animal's coming home with me. 9 times out of 10, it's coming home with me. I don't think about missing, failing, because we put all these steps in, all this work in, and I trust in God. So after you put in your sight type, there's gonna be some measurements that you need. This is where your caliper is gonna come into play. Do not skip this step. Don't just say, hey, I'll just grab my measuring tape out of the garage and do that. Remember, you get out of the system what you put into it, okay? If you're just gonna go with your measuring tape, then really you should just go with the sight tape that came with your sight, because you're not really gonna see a major step up in accuracy from your sight tape, right? But if you're the type who, you know, good enough isn't enough for you, then don't skip this step. If you're here on Oahu, I definitely don't mind helping you get set up. I have all the tools, all the instruments already that we need to get you squared away. And you know, like I said in previous videos, this is a family, a faith-filled family. It's all about helping each other out and just being a community. So if you don't have this and you can't purchase it, and you don't have any of these tools that you might need, then by all means, reach out to me on Instagram, reach out to me in the comments, and we can set something up. So caliper, caliper, caliper. I'm gonna take the measurement of the peep sight here, and then I'm gonna divide that number by 2. That'll give me the radius, or half the distance, basically the distance from the top to the center. I'm gonna do the same thing with the arrow. I'm gonna get those 2 measurements, I'm gonna set those to the side. Then I'm going to take the same calipers and I'm gonna measure from here, adjust it all the way to it's reaching the bottom. Those 2 measurements that I came up for the peep sight and the arrow shaft, I'm gonna add those to the distance from the arrow shaft to the peep sight. Ideally, you would do this, you know, with a peep sight not installed. But I like to take the caliper and measure either side. I like to measure the complete width of the peep sight. And then I'm gonna write that measurement down. And I go from the pin you can ask a buddy to kind of hold that steady. I've obviously had a cup or 2 of coffee that has me a little shaky, but I go to the front of the peep sight. I take that measurement that I got from the caliper that I cut in half or divided by 2, and I add it to the measurement that I got from the front of the peep to the pin. And then I record that into Archer's Advantage. Archer's Advantage is for the archery nerds out there who just happen to bow hunt, in my opinion. So I'm gonna take those calipers again, and I'm gonna make sure there's no tension on this string. And what you wanna do is you wanna measure from the center of the burger button to the string. You're gonna get your brace height, your actual brace height. Because when you go into Archer's Advantage, it's gonna ask what bow you're using, right? In my case, it's a Matthews VXR 31.5, and it's gonna have some preset stuff, right? I think, I can't remember what the VXR brace height is, but you might be, you know, a 16th off here or there. I like to get rid of that and eliminate those factors. So it allows me to put what my actual measured brace height in. All right, so next you want, when you're entering your bow information, one thing it's gonna ask for is peak draw weight. Don't guess that, right? Don't go to Matthew's website and see that it's adjustable to 75 pounds. hey, I got my limbos cranked all the way down, therefore it should be 75 pounds. No, that's wrong. Use a draw scale, whatever type of draw weight scale you have. Make sure it's Archery rated and actually measure that peak weight. You may be surprised with the number that you get. Draw back with the arrow on, aiming in a safe direction. I'm gonna be aiming at my target. 76.6 is what I need to add. So 76.6 is what I'm gonna need to add into the system. If I would have just assumed that it's 75 pounds flat, I would be completely wrong. At full draw, obviously, you're gonna measure from the center of the burger button to your knocking point. You're gonna add 1 3/4 to whatever you get on your tape measure. So for me, it says 29 right on the dot. My draw length isn't 29 inches. You have to add 1 3/4 to that, right? So whatever you're getting here, don't be confused. I remember first time taking this measurement a few years back, being confused on my draw length. I know I was measured at the shop for a certain thing, but what I'm measuring here isn't showing. Make sure you add 1 3/4. Go to the sight in tab. It's gonna ask for 4 different pieces of information. It's gonna ask for range 1. Range 1 is gonna be the close distance that you shoot. So you're gonna shoot 2 groups, one at close range, one at a further range. Both of them need to be as accurate as possible. And you're gonna use the same pin. So for instance, if Mark 1 or range 1, as the app calls it, is at 20 yards, don't settle on, hey, it was kind of high, it was maybe like a ½ inch high. That's good enough. No. Spend some time at that mark. If you have to leave that range today and you've only got 1 mark in, that's fine. Make sure you get that 20-yard pin sighted in perfectly. You're gonna slide your housing down and you're gonna go back with the same pin. This is very important, that same pin. So if you use your 20-yard pin, slide down and shoot as far back as you can comfortably. So if that distance is 80 yards for you, then shoot a group at 80 yards. Has to be a tight group though. Remember, you're using that same pin. So you have to take into account your vein clearance as well. You may not be able to dial your sight down enough to use your 20 pin at 70 or 80 as well. So keep those factors in mind. All right, well, my sight all the way to the top, that's gonna be that mark. So I'll use a half line, and just to make, I'll just kind of etch in where my indicator pin is so I can later use my calipers. I'm gonna dial all the way down. For me, my close range one I use 30, and then my further one out I usually shoot at 80. Now mind you, you might just have a blank piece here because you don't have a sight tape yet, or it may be your old factory one that came in, you know, that came with your package. I use that half line to etch a mark there as well. I'm gonna go back to that caliper that we used earlier to make our other measurements. I'm gonna measure the distance from where the indicator pin was when I shot at 20 to where it is now that I'm using the same pin to dial down to 80, I'm gonna measure that distance. I'm gonna record that distance into Archer's Advantage, and that's gonna give me a calculated speed. That calculated speed is very important. Please use the calculated speed and not your chronograph. If you go to the archery shop and use their chronograph and then come back to your house and use your chronograph and then use your buddy's chronograph, they're all gonna give you 3 different readings. Guarantee no 2 chronographs are gonna measure the same. At least not a budget one. For you nerds, I know you're still excited. For you people who are not nerds but you wanna be more accurate, you might be struggling right now. Hold on, we're almost done. We're about to get to the fun part, the part that we all like to do, and that's shoot. But before that, I need you to go to the print tab. You're gonna be able to print a sight tape and then select your yardage scale or range scale. So whether you're using meters or yards. Once you go there, it's going to give you an option to print. Now there's a disclaimer at the top, or a warning or a caution. It says never use fit to size or anything like that. Make sure you either select actual in your print settings or 100% in your print settings. If you do one of the fit to page or scale settings that may come default in your printer, your sight tape will be off, and you will drive yourself crazy trying to figure this out. Make sure you get this the correct type of paper or label for your printer. If it's inkjet, get inkjet. If it's laserjet, get laser. If not, your sight markings might not last as long. I like to get an all-weather style, something that's meant to go on packages, full page. That generally will hold up better than just printing on a piece of paper and putting double-sided tape on it or something like that. You can use it. I've had that work in the past, but I prefer to just do it the right way. And then I will cover it with some type of tape or some type of clear coating to make sure that it stands up to the elements. Next, we're gonna get to everybody's favorite part. We're gonna go to the range and we're gonna verify that our sight tape is accurate. We're gonna verify that when we scroll down with that sight to 83.5 yards, that it hits dead center. That is the goal there. We wanna center punch a target. We wanna center punch or 12 ring an animal. We wanna recover it quickly and keep it moving. All these things that we do to increase our accuracy, a lot of times will reduce target panic, because just like in the engineering world, you wanna remove all variables before you actually go into the test or into whatever function that you're trying to carry out. Remove all variables, make your equipment as accurate as possible, and then all you gotta do is worry about executing the shot. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I have to thank y'all. A lot of y'all have been, we're seeing that people who are viewing it are actually subscribing, so we appreciate y'all. Y'all not like the phantom watchers who watch the content, enjoy it, gain something from it, and then just move on. So we appreciate that. But yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit your buddy up, share it, tag somebody who you crush on the 3D range all the time. If you got somebody who you crush on the 3D range all the time, go ahead and tag them and just make sure they see this. Let them know that you're a better shooter than them, you're more accurate than them, because you eliminate all variables in your equipment before you go out there in the range. Therefore, you're confident at all times, and that's why they're shaky. Thanks, Privilege.